single sector is so far being marked up at the start. Basic resources, very interestingly, are trading higher. And gas to 1.5% higher is the best performer in that certainly heavily weighted on the London market sector. Vedanta, Billiton and Rio all moving higher. Oil and gas and technology moving to the upside. Let's have a look at the FTSE 100. We talked a little bit just before the break with Andy Brough and Carsten Schroeder about the UK housing market. You look at the UK house builders, they've had a great run up, and that's why a lot of the brokers now, if you look at a stock like Bovis, are on hold. 9 out of a sampling of about 13 last time I looked were on hold on this stock. It's had a terrific run up. It's actually doubled the performance over the last couple of years of the FTSE 250, which in itself has had a good run to the upside. Bovis shares, though, still rallying today, 5% higher. The news from them today was pretty good across the board. Reservations jumping 40% in the first half compared with the same period last year. Sales rising 26%, and the average selling price moving up really aggressively compared with the same period last year, around about 15% higher. Elsewhere, let's take a look at Lloyds Bank. It's still trading up 2.4%. That's despite the fact there's lots of consternation between the Sunday Times, Reuters and others about whether Temasek is going to take a holding in this one or not. Temasek apparently has not approached the UK government over a stake in Lloyds. This is according to Reuters, which was responding to a Sunday Times story that said the Singaporean wealth fund was actually making an approach to the British government to take a stake in the lender, which we understand is set to be privatised in some measure. Let's have a look at Longmin as well. Longmin says Union Court hearing set for the 10th of July. Shares not moving on this one. A court application has been brought by the NUM, one of the unions representing Longmin employees. Court application set for 10th of July. Right, Carsten, Andy and Jeff have sauntered over to the wall for a little chat.
Let's talk about that Lloyd story first up, I think, with Andy, because it's a fascinating story, isn't it? Now a suggestion that there are a couple of potential buyers here for some of the government stake. I expressed the view that I didn't think Mervyn Davies really, as a former minister of the government, should really be looking to buy a stake in Lloyds off the government. But I don't know whether you've got any views on that. And also, what kind of price the government might get for its stake at this point?
Well, I think the government would be happy to sell it to anyone, actually, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, but when you've kind of haven't got a lot of money, it's an asset which you'd like to get off your books. And we were just talking, weren't we, about the fact that as the housing market starts to recover in terms of prices, whatever, Lloyds is probably the biggest writer of mortgages in the market, and you're going to see more favourable terms, the balance sheet starts doing better. And I think the government, as long as it seems to realise a profit, won't really mind who they sell it to. And I think it's going to happen by September. The first lot will be out the door. I don't think that personally they will sell a strategic stake. I think they want to be seen to be spreading it around institutions, and then they spread it to the public at a discount, because actually then George can say we are all in it together.
Yeah, and I think it's not only the fact that Lloyds is in a better shape, it's also that the timing is pretty good, because the cash reserves from all potential buyers in the market are so high at the moment. So I think we generally see lots of M&A transactions coming around. So I think it's just a perfect timing now to come out with it.
And also, if they can make a decent profit on Lloyds, then they could potentially actually take a loss on Royal Bank of Scotland and say that overall, we weathered the financial crisis, we didn't cost you, the taxpayer, any money, you've got your money back in aggregate. And I think that is one thing that we're looking at very closely.
What are you buying in the market, Andy, at the moment? What are you doing with the portfolio?
Well, all we've had to do, really, is be long sort of UK, because they've been through the pain and they're restructuring, be it house builders with lots of land coming out, companies servicing the housing sector, retailers, in the UK, be it Sports Direct or the Ted Bakers or Dunelm, really dominating their market, and whatever growth there has been around has gone to them. Now, the thing I'm looking at now more and more is sort of overseas earners, because if we're right and inflation remains a bit of a problem in the UK, and Carney comes in and says, right, I'm going to keep the money taps on, and sterling continues to depreciate, then all these overseas earners, which have been absolutely trounced, the chemical sector and some of the industrials, could start to look attractive, actually. Yeah. Because a one-way bet on UK consumer spending is not something that's really going to make you money from there, I don't think.
In terms of the growth you were mentioning, would you be willing to put on a spread trade between growth in Europe and growth in the UK? Would you go short Europe, long UK? Do you think the recovery is stronger here than on the mainland?
Well, I think, there's a company called Headlam who supply sort of carpets to independent retailers, which had a profit warning today. When you look at their components and their numbers, the UK's down a bit, but the Netherlands and other parts of Europe are down sort of between 5 and 10%.
That's significant.
Yeah, and at some point, the Europeans are going to say, look, hold on a minute, we've got to do something here. So it's the brave person now who actually starts looking at Europe and thinks, well, Merkel gets her election out of the way, and actually let's just put some more money in the system here and try and do what the US and the UK have done in resurrect the banking sector, enable them to make some super profits so they can start absorbing the provisions. And now in Europe, that's probably got further to go, right?
But I mean, we had that discussion earlier this morning. Do you think QE is really the thing? Because the balance sheet in the UK has been much more expanded at the central bank than the ECB balance sheet has. Do you think that's what Europe has to do in a more stronger fashion?
Well, we're still trying to find the answer in the UK. Where has £375 billion gone?
Has it filtered down? Where is it?
No one knows. But if it hasn't filtered down and we've actually started to recover, my God, if it does filter down, then we're going to have the mother of all booms.
Yeah.
And I think the ECB are going to look at this and think, well, there's got to be a way whereby we can create the perception that there is more money around. They tried it once, and they Draghi saying, yep, we will buy every bond available and then not buy them. So at some point they're going to have to start printing a bit of money because they've seen what's happened in these other countries.
Do you think it's more of a psychological effect there because it's creating the perception?
Yeah.
Whilst it's not really there?
Yeah.
You've got to step up at some point, though, don't you? Because at the moment, Draghi's just using the language, but the
Which
market
still
wants to see evidence of purchases. Steve, let's send it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Okay, let's move on and take a look at some more of these individual markets. So on the CAC 40, we are doing pretty well, really. 4/5 1% higher at 37.83. Vivendi's interesting. They're looking to obviously cut their debt levels in various operations. Activision, which is the US games operation, they've tried to sell their part of their stake in this one. I think they've got 61% of this company. That's right. And according to reports, now what they're looking at is the US company itself, amongst other options. US company could potentially launch a tender offer for part or all of that 61% by using some of the cash on its own balance sheet to pay the former owner there. So Vivendi shares not really reacting to that one, trading at €14.70. Let's move on. The Spanish market is 0.5% higher. 79.07 is where it's currently trading. A couple of big stories for you on the German market, one of them being Deutsche Bank, according to, what is it now, Börsen-Zeitung on Saturday, citing the finance chief Stefan Kraus. The group does not need to transfer capital holdings to its US subsidiary to meet US stricter regulatory rules. Another story you may be interested as well regarding Siemens and the split of the light bulb business Osram as well. Annetta Weisbach joins us in Frankfurt. Well, 2 points. Annetta, first of all, lovely to see you. Long time since you and I have had a proper chat. Secondly, I was talking to Herr Loesche the other day. He seemed in absolutely ebullient form, actually, talking about wind. Why does he want wind but not light bulbs?
Well, actually, the light bulb unit or the light business is quite a difficult market. We had a lot of technical changes there, and Osram was quite slow to adjust to a change in the lighting units world. So that is a structuring case, and Osram could actually sell the most shares in that year, meaning the biggest IPO here on the German market. We don't have an indication yet how the Osram shares are doing. We should have that around 9:30 today in the morning, but the expectations are not too great for that IPO. Analysts are expecting the shares to fall quite tremendously
CNBC.
today. The reason why is that it's not a normal IPO
Virgin Media hosts this.
building procedure, but every Siemens shareholder got Osram shares, and that's the problem here, because it was kind of a forced procedure, and the likelihoods that they are selling it are quite high. So the range, the estimate range, is extremely wide. It goes from €22 to €44 per share. So everything is possible, I would say. But let me as well speak a bit about Deutsche Bank, because that's quite an interesting take. Its CFO, its CFO said in the Börsen-Zeitung on Saturday that the bank does not need to transfer equity capital to its US holdings, and that is quite a bold statement looking at what the Fed and Mr. Tarullo is actually discussing in the United States for foreign banks. Right now, The Deutsche Bank has an affiliate with assets of 355 billion euros on its balance sheet by the end of last year, but through some legal restructuring, it has deregistered its US affiliate status and might actually get around, but it probably will not get around a leverage ratio if that is going to get installed. With that, I'm sending it back to you.
Okay, Annetta, thank you very much indeed for that. And just on a programming note, Wolfgang Dehn, the CEO of Osram, will be on Worldwide Exchange at 10:30 Central European Time. Let's get back to the conversation. Andy Bruff and Carsten Schroeder are here with me. So, Andy, you're looking at industrials, exporters...
Okay, this can be found on the internet, I'm sure, in a few days' time. Going to check the other channels.
I mean, all it took was a change in
this palace at Westminster. We need practical
International Development Debate.
People, the poorest of the poor,
4th of July,
the
Westminster.
lowest of the low,
I missed that,
to give them the ability to go to court and challenge what has been done.
but significant.
To crush them and crush their children. And
numbers will get earnings from JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo. We'll track it all.
Big week ahead on Wall Street.
Pull up.
Learn too many facts rather than how to think. The complaints began as soon as the first drafts began to emerge earlier this year.
Education.
The astounding thing is that
the Egyptian army has been accused of massacring 30 supporters of Mohamed Morsi, the man
gosh.
as president. There are conflicting accounts of what happened in Cairo. Our Middle East correspondent.
Mr. Gray, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I want to start off by...
You'll also be able to look at this on the website.
Congratulating the Right Honourable Member for Gordon, the chair of the Select Committee, and his Select Committee team, who we've already heard from. And
New Select Committee.
I want to say how moving I found the speech by my honourable friend for the member for York Central, as well as the contribution made by the honourable member for Congleton. I think that
Serenity
these
prayer.
contributions and the work of the committee,
Freaks some guys out, an owl.
It says it all really about why we need to continue our efforts to
Pair of
speak up
leopards
for
in the
some of
corner,
most
huh?
vulnerable people in the world, and particularly those who are powerless to act. And it is a credit to members in this Parliament across all sides who are passionate
Roshana
advocates of
Al,
the
Shadow
development,
International Development
aid
Minister.
support that goes to people in those countries, in countries like Pakistan.
You can read this on the net. Probably even see it. Okay.